in the universe. Please be sure and check it out. I have Stacy, our executive producer, and our good friend Megan Conner from her YouTube channel, which is at @3_verse. How are you doing tonight, Megan?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
We are doing very, very good. We're going to jump right into it because, shockingly, Lori Vallow Daybell is in the news once again. And we're surprised, aren't we? Absolutely.
Shocked.
I'm going to...
Yep, shocked.
Shock. I'm going to read this article quickly here from Fox 10. It says, Lori Daybell files notice of appeal for Arizona convictions. What a shock. All right. Notice is hereby given that Lori Daybell appeals from the judgment of guilt and sentence in the above entitled case following a jury trial, which was entered into the Superior Court of Maricopa County on July 25th, 2025, by the Honorable Justin Beresky, read the documents obtained by Maricopa County Superior Court. So that's basically it. Now, Megan, I'm sure you're shocked by this, right?
No, I'm not shocked.
No, it's going to happen.
We always knew it was going to appeal, right?
Yeah, I just didn't think it'd be this quick. Do you have any of the documents at all? Can you read what you have?
Well, all I have is the one-page document that was a notice of appeal that was filed by her attorney. Her attorney said that she was declared indigent, and interestingly, that she's going to be represented by counsel this time, so not her own attorney on appeal.
Wow.
But that's I mean, I do have it. I guess
that's all it says.
But yeah, that's all it says. It's nothing, it's nothing groundbreaking. There's nothing about what her appeal is going to contain, but we can guess, right? According to all the things she's filed so far, that she's going to claim Judge Beresky was not impartial. She's going to claim that her Fourth Amendment rights were violated. She's going to claim that, she was misdiagnosed by MCSO with a UTI when she actually, it was actually something else. This is what I find really funny, is that, she wanted her medical records sealed. But then in all of her motions to have her case dismissed, she referenced specific medical information, which essentially waives her right to have that medical information protected. So if she discloses her own medical information, it can't really be under seal anymore. She can't really keep that private anymore. And that's her own fault.
Yeah, because she's not a lawyer. She's got a big mouth, and she doesn't know how to deal with court cases. Like in court, one of my favorite court scenes was when she got angry because the judge used her name when sending out the information to the jurors. And she's like, you don't do that with anybody else. And the judge is like, how can we ask the jurors if they have heard of your case if we don't use your name? Because that's what they were sending out to the jurors. And she just sat there, didn't say a word. And he just sat there because she didn't know what to say. But
he said, can you present any kind of argument as to why, she said the case, it literally says the state versus Lori Daybell. And the judge was like, that's the name of the case.
Yep. What's she supposed to do?
And she's like, well, this creates a huge bias. And he said, well, how does it create a bias? And she had no answer for that.
No.
Isn't that when she chucked her glasses down?
I can't.
It might be.
Might have been. Any more? No, Your Honor.
Nothing to say there. She didn't know what to say.
No, Your Honor. Yep. So, and I hope this is okay to bring up. We were talking a little bit before we went on about a realization that you had when you were younger, that you and Lori shared a mattress when you were younger, right? Is it okay if we talk about that?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, and how old were you when this happened?
Well, so I mean, there were a couple of times when I went to go stay with the Cox family. I would stay in Lori's room with Lori and Summer, and that was when I was much younger as a teenager. But then when I lived with Adam and Lori in Austin, and this was in 1993, Lori would have been 18 and I would have been 17. I'm trying to think if that's correct. I think I would have been 19. I would have been 19. She would have been 20. This was before Colby was born. This was after her first marriage, but before her second marriage. And, you know, we were staying in a 2-bedroom apartment. It was Adam's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Lori was living there working at a tanning salon. And I came down to live with them for a couple of months. We, you know, Lori got a job for me at the tanning salon.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a mattress on the floor in the second bedroom. And that's what she and I would sleep on, that mattress together.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really think about that very much, like that particular part of it, until,
Right.
you know, just a couple of months ago. And I was like, man, I slept right next to her for at least 2 months.
A killer.
And
A killer.
yeah. And my partner Samuel was like, I can't believe that you didn't think about it until just now, because I've thought about that the whole time. Like you literally slept right next to her.
That just would shock the hell out of me thinking about it. And you know what? It would traumatize me. I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but it would traumatize me to think somebody that I was that close to could do these horrible crimes. I mean, I don't know how you're handling it, but it would absolutely freak me out to no end.
Well, I mean, that was what bothered me so much at the very beginning of hearing about all of this, was that we were close. You know, we were close enough that we went to work together every single day, and we slept on the same mattress on the floor every single night, you know, for at least a couple of months. And, you know, even after we had a falling out and, you know, her parents moved to San Antonio, so our families were close. We spent a lot of time together where, you know, every holiday, every birthday, you know, we were in the Cox's house with Barry making his damn fruit salad.
Of course.
You know, that whole time. And, you know, Lori was living in either Del Rio when she was married to Billy, which is, you know, the Colby's biological dad. And when she then moved to Austin and she was working there. And, you know, Colby and my daughter were not that far apart in age, and we would take them to the Target portrait studio and have them get pictures taken together like they were siblings.
Right.
You know, we were kind of young, quote unquote, single moms together, where neither one of our husbands were super involved with the kids' development. And so it was just, I don't know, it's surreal to me to think of how close we were during that time. And yeah, of course, you know, I kind of backed away from the family when she started divorcing Joe Ryan. And so from that time until, you know, Charles was killed, it was a long time. It was probably 12 or 13 years. But that was a really formative time in my life, like throughout my childhood and also my young adult years. And especially when my oldest daughter was born, when I got married, she was a bridesmaid at my wedding. Like,
right.
You know, we were super close. And so to think about the idea that somebody that I knew that well, that I thought I knew that well, and that I spent that much time with, and that I was that close to, was capable of this kind of, frankly, horror, is traumatizing.
It is. It is.
You know, and it's hard to dig through all of the family relationships that have taken place over that period of time. It's hard to wrap my brain around the fact that people that I thought that I trusted, people that I thought that I knew, people that I loved and cared about, were capable of this kind of deception and manipulation and narcissism. It's a really difficult thing to admit to yourself that a relationship that you've had was actually really detrimental.
Right. And it was absolutely detrimental. What about Alex? How close to you? How close were you to Alex?
You know, Alex was not really capable of forming attachments. But even with that deficiency, when I went to visit the Coxes in California, he and I would hang out and we would talk. I remember very specifically one night when everybody else had gone to bed and I couldn't sleep and I was trying to watch a movie, and Alex came into the room and sat down next to me, just put his arms around me and just hugged me. And he said, "What's going on? What's wrong? Why can't you sleep?" You know, and I told him a couple of things. I confided in him, and the things I confided in him ended up getting like super twisted. And I think he told a sensationalized version of those things to his family, you know, just to make it more interesting. But I don't know. And then when he lived in San Antonio, he and I would hang out from time to time. And it was like, you know, when he was living at Janice and Barry's, not so much, but then he got his own apartment. And once he did that, you know, every once in a while we would hang out and watch a movie together, or we would get takeout together or something. So we weren't super close, but it was one of those things where like you have a family member that you know is in town and you can call them when you want to be with them. You know, you just need a connection or whatever. And so it wasn't all the time that we hung out, but it was every once in a while. And then, you know, famously, he kind of used me for his alibi when Stacy was,
And I know you've told that before. Can you give like kind of because we have new people here all the time, and I forget that they don't know all the backstory. But can you tell again what happened? Because I do feel there's no question you were used as an alibi in the death of Stacy Cox. And let's remind everybody that while Stacy was dying, her parents were in Hawaii with I think the other siblings, and they didn't come back, right? Yeah. So she had a diabetic. She was a diabetic, and I'm sorry. I'm trying to tell you the story. You go ahead and tell the story real quick, and then continue on with what you were saying.
I'll just give a short version of, you know, that Alex and I would hang out from time to time. And, you know, I hadn't heard from him for a while, but he kind of called me out of the blue after not hearing from him for several months and was like, "Hey, do you want to get together and hang out and get takeout, watch a movie?" So he came over to my apartment and brought takeout with him, and we were watching a movie. Halfway through the movie, he said, "I've been really worried about Stacy. She's been really depressed lately. She told me she was just going to take a big shot and go to bed, and she's a type 1 diabetic. So that would mean if she took a big shot, that means that her blood sugar would drop really low." So he said, "Will you come and check on her with me?" And I was like, "Yes, of course. I hope she's okay." So we went to the Coxes' house. She was not in her bedroom. She was in the parents' bedroom, in the master bedroom. And Janice and Barry, which were the parents, as well as Lori and Summer, were in Hawaii on a vacation. And Alex, I guess, had kind of been charged with checking up on her, seeing if she was okay. And it was apparent that she was unresponsive when we found her. Alex called 911. The paramedics came. They took her to the hospital, and we went and waited there to see what the doctors were going to say. And I called my parents and had them meet us there. The doctors talked to my parents, and afterwards, you know, several hours had passed, but my parents basically came and let Alex and I know that she was in a diabetic coma and she was not going to survive. And so my dad was kind of in charge of arranging hospice care for her.
Okay.
And he informed his sister Janice that Stacy was not going to survive, and they stayed in Hawaii. They did not come home.
Oh my God. I needed you to tell that again, because I can't grasp that. I can't. Your child is dying. You know, I would get a leaky lifeboat and go home if that's all I had. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Was your father, was he shocked or not?
You know, I talked to him about this a couple of years ago, and he didn't remember all the details. He's, you know, much older now, of course, and his memory is not as good. But I remember very specifically that night hearing that she was not going to survive, hearing that my dad was going to have to arrange for hospice care because the Coxes were in Hawaii, and hearing that there was a lot of speculation about what had caused this to happen.
Mhm.
I think it was my mom that asked me if Stacy had been drinking. I said I didn't really know her to be a drinker, and I didn't think that there was alcohol in the Cox home as far as I knew. But of course, who knows?
Mhm.
And also at the time, I did not know what Stacy's mental health status was, and I hadn't unpacked my own trauma. So I wasn't like, today Megan with a huge perspective on mental health would have been like, yeah, Stacy is in a terrible position. She's lost her daughter. She's had a horrible divorce. Her parents have told her, like, it's just your time to go. Of course, she could have done something to harm herself. But at the time, I didn't have that perspective or those ideas. And I was like, there's no way that she did anything to hurt herself. At the time, I just thought, I can't believe she's only 32 years old and she has this life-threatening condition and her family abandoned her and they're not coming home.
I can't believe I
At the
can't.
time, that was my perspective.
Well, and that was
And
a correct
Awful.
perspective.
Yeah.
and I was young. I was only, what was this, 1998? So I was 24 years old.
Right.
I didn't know what I didn't know, and I wanted to believe that my family members were good people. I wanted to
Right.
believe that they had everybody's best interest at heart. I wanted to believe that they were good Mormons, that they were God-fearing people, that they would never do anything to hurt anybody. So, at the time, I sort of excused all of the cognitive dissonance that I had. But then I think it was when, I definitely believed that when Charles was killed, 100%, I was like, Lori and Alex planned that
You knew it. You could feel it.
because of what had happened with Joe Ryan, where Alex had, assaulted Joe Ryan, and that was all planned and set up. But it wasn't. I don't think it was until I don't remember exactly at one point I had this epiphany, but it was somewhere in the mix of the kids were missing. Lori had disappeared. She wasn't communicating with anybody. And I knew that Lori had sold JJ's service dog. And I knew that there was a storage locker containing a lot of the kids' paraphernalia.
Right.
And I think that was the point at which I had to process the fact that I did not think that they were going to be found alive. But I don't know if it was, I don't remember at what point I had this epiphany that, like, oh my God, I bet Alex killed Stacy. I don't remember exactly at what point that was, but I immediately called the FBI and I was like, look, this is a pattern.
Right.
This is important to point out. And they basically told me, like, you should probably file a police report in the county where it happened. And I did that, but they told me that, like, okay, the perpetrator's dead. And
That's the
we
point.
don't
Yeah.
have any way of getting cell phone records or any of that kind of stuff at a time when there were not really cell phones or whatever.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
they were like, we don't have any way of really collecting evidence about this
Mhm.
because the family members aren't going to say anything. And we don't even have, they're like, we don't even have a probable cause to go and confront anybody about
Right.
it.
Right.
And so they were like, we can't really do anything about it. And that was just really sad to me because I don't know. I mean, even at the time, if I had been awake enough to understand what was going on at the time, I still don't think there really would have been a lot of evidence, although Alex was using Stacy's credit card and all of that stuff. But anyway.
Well, here's a question. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, I was just going to say I avoided telling that story when I went on Hidden True Crime for the first time because I thought, Melanie is still alive. That's her mother. Steve is still alive. That was his former wife. I don't want to disparage their memory of their, wife and mother. And so I'm not going to speculate about what may have happened. But then, John DeLynn invited me onto Mormon Stories and I had some time to think about it. And I thought, that story is actually the most important one to tell, because I think it was the first time that Alex may have done something to hasten Stacy's death at the very
Right.
least. And I think it establishes this pattern of Alex being willing to go farther than anybody else when there was a situation that needed taking care of. And when you put that together with his assault of Joe Ryan that he served time for, and the setup of Charles, when you put those things together, it really establishes this clear pattern.
Absolutely. This is a couple of people have asked this question. Neurodivergent says, is it possible that Alex's parents organized this and got Alex to carry it out? In other words, let me make this a two-part question. First part, they told Stacy basically maybe it's your time or worse to that effect. And right.
They did tell her that.
It's
yes.
awful. And then this could be possible. Maybe they went to Hawaii with the, wink, wink, take care of your sister, Alex, wink, wink.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that's very possible. I think it's one of two scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, first of all, the Coxes loved going to Hawaii. And
Yes.
I think it probably started when they lived in Los Angeles and tickets to Hawaii were relatively cheap and easy to get a hold of.
Right.
And I think they just, that kind of became a family pattern. And so it's possible that they may have had a trip planned and they may have, left Stacy behind thinking, she's probably going to be okay. And then
Right.
something happened. I also think it's very, very possible that ahead of time they said, Stacy's been sickly. She's been really depressed. She really doesn't want to live anymore.
Mhm.
Maybe it's her time to go. Maybe she was supposed to die early. That was the narrative.
Right.
And maybe they just gave Alex free rein and said, if there's anything that you can do to help end her suffering, then we're going to
That's
be
probably
out
how
of
they would
town.
probably how they'd put it. Right.
Have free access.
Mm-hmm.
Do whatever you think is best.
That is absolutely just horrendous beyond belief. So let me back up to the Coxes saying that to Stacy. How do you know they told Stacy maybe it's your time? Did somebody tell you that, or what did they say exactly?
Well, first of all, this is documented in Stacy and Steve's divorce documents.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Stacy had told this to Steve, and Steve, I think, had also heard Barry and Janice say this, that maybe you're just not supposed to live a long life,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's just your time. But that also was kind of the prevailing narrative. Whenever Alex would talk about Stacy, and he would say really insensitive things about her health condition and her weight. And, Alex's job in the family system was to kind of make light of the really serious, heavy things so that we didn't have to deal with the real emotions of everything. And, he made a lot of jokes and insensitive comments about Stacy, her mental health and her physical health. And so, there was just this kind of understanding that Alex really didn't have a conscience. He didn't really have the ability to form long-term attachments with people.
Mm-hmm.
Never held a job very long, never had a very long relationship. Even the one time that he got married didn't last very long. And so, it was just this idea that Alex was a fixer in a sort of way,
Yeah.
and not just with people, but with pets and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he did kill pets too, right?
Well, the family story, here's the thing about Cox family stories, is that they tend to have an element of truth to them. And they also
Yes.
tend to have a bit of exaggeration and
Mhm.
sometimes a lot of exaggeration. So take it for what you will. But a family story that I heard was that somebody was not pleased with the little dogs that they had. And so they gave them to Alex, and Alex took them out into the desert and just released them. And whatever happened, happened. So there's just this idea that Alex would just take care of it because he didn't really have a conscience in that
Mhm.
way.
Exactly. Lynn Gen 2 says, do we trust the Cox family stories? Well, somewhat, a little bit
Yeah, I
here
mean,
and there.
it's like I say, of course we cannot trust that the Cox family stories are 100% true. We absolutely cannot. But in my experience, what would happen with the Cox family stories is that the worst of it was probably true.
Yeah.
And the other circumstances were probably not. It was like there was always a whitewashed version that made the Coxes look less culpable, more compassionate, a little more innocent than they actually were. But the hard part, and I'll give you an example. When Joe Ryan was assaulted by Alex, the family story was that Alex planned to tase him, throw him in the trunk, and go take care of him somewhere else. So what part of that do we believe is not true?
I think it's all true.
Because what was true is that Alex did assault him, but he got caught and he was arrested. So he couldn't carry out the rest of it.
Yeah.
So do we think that was really his plan, or did he just plan to assault him and have that be the end of it?
Now that we know what Alex is capable of, there's no way. That was just going to be the end of it. That was just the beginning, and he got caught. Let's talk a little bit about Stacy. Stacy is Melanie's mother. Melanie Boudreau slash Pulowski. We've heard a lot about her. We are hoping there'll be charges brought against Melanie for the attempted murder of her husband, Brandon. Now, in the divorce papers on your channel, and you know what, I'll find that the link to that story because it was great. You read the some of the divorce parts of the divorce between Stacy and Steve. It talked about.
I did the video that I did that really went
Perry.
in depth to that was called The Felon Father That Raised Lori Vallow Daybell.
Yeah. And it was about Barry Cox, and it was
Yeah.
a great. Oh my God, that video was great, and I'll link that in the description. But what I found very interesting was, again, this is Steve's version, this is her father's version, but the horror that Melanie went through with Stacy as a mother. I mean, it was awful, wasn't it? Like not going to school and weird things with food. What was going on with that?
I think that Stacy's mental illness, and I do believe that she was mentally ill, unfortunately. I think that her mental dysfunction made her paranoid, and she was kind of a germaphobe. And so she was also really afraid of her daughter being exposed to these types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so she instilled in Melanie a fear of candy, Coke, processed foods. And there was an unhealthy obsession over germs and being in public places and being in school. And so Stacy would keep Melanie out of school to avoid those germs.
Oh,
and so, and so when, Steve traveled for work sometimes, and when he was gone, Melanie would not be going to school, and Stacy would be her home. And so eventually, Steve realized that Stacy's mental condition had deteriorated so much that it was having a negative effect on Melanie.
Yes.
And so, at one point he did just take Melanie and leave. And according to Barry Cox, Steve stole his granddaughter and left Stacy to die. But the thing is, here's the difference between Steve Cope and Kevin Franke, if we want to talk about this for a second.
Yes.
Kevin Franke towed the line. He did everything he was told to do, which was to abandon his children and go live somewhere else. And meanwhile, they were being subjected to horrific abuse. Steve did the exact opposite. He saw that his daughter was being harmed mentally and emotionally, and he took his daughter and left the situation.
Which is what Kevin should have done, yes.
Do we like the fact that Stacy was left alone in that mental condition? No. However, there's a point that you get to as a parent and in a marriage where you have this realization where you realize your spouse is never going to change. Right. And given that fact, what are you going to do to protect your children?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Steve did what I think every parent should do in that situation. When you know your spouse is mentally unhealthy and they're not going to change, all you can do is remove the child from that situation.
Right.
And yes, it's horrible that Stacy was in that state. She never should have been in that state, but it was very clear that she was not going to change. She was not going to get help on her own. And so given those circumstances, what do? Do you sacrifice yourself to try to save the spouse, meanwhile keeping your child in harm's way?
Right.
I believe the answer is no. I believe the answer is that your spouse, while unfortunate, is a grown-ass adult.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's harming your child, you need to remove your child.
Absolutely right. And I think all of this weirdness and mental breakdowns can be traced back to things like this. Like Chuck A's granddaughter says, Janice, just tasting, not swallowing, has to have major mental health issues for all the females in her orbit. Absolutely, because it was all about being thin. You have to be thin. Yeah. Thin meant beauty, right? Yeah. That was the whole thing, you know? And we can trace all of that back to
it's literally generational trauma. It is generational trauma that has been handed down and handed down and handed down. And at some point, somebody has to look at it and say, am I going to keep perpetuating this system that I was handed and these ideas that I was handed, or am I going to do something different?
Exactly. And, you know, the Cox family's way of raising kids has had a horrible ripple effect on so many people. It is just unbelievable. Do we know if Lori is back in Idaho now? I'm assuming she is.
I don't think she is quite yet.
Oh,
I could be wrong about that because when I looked at the appeal document, it basically, well, sorry, not the appeal document, but she has a hearing coming up on the 19th of September it's the restitution hearing that was much debated during the sentencing.
Oh, that's right.
Judge Boreski, in that document, Judge Boreski said if she does not waive her appearance, then he will expect her to be transported to the court for that hearing in person.
And that's September 19th, right?
Yeah. Yes. And since she is her own counsel for that case, nobody else can waive her appearance. She has to waive her appearance.
Right, right.
I read she was waiting for extradition, still.
I mean, yeah, she wants to get back to Idaho as soon as she possibly can. But if she's going to do that, she needs to waive her appearance before this hearing, because if she doesn't waive, she's going to be transported against her will back to Arizona.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to be
Judge Boreski was saying, she was like, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to appear or not. And he was like, well, the issue is I don't want to extradite you from Idaho for a hearing. Right. And so you either need to waive your appearance or allow your advisory counsel to appear on your behalf. And she wasn't willing to do that because she's, again, just trying to control everything she possibly can.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is a good question, but I don't know if you have the answer. Question for Megan. Did Janice's mom or dad have the same ideas about being so thin?
So Janice's parents, my grandparents, they both died very, very young, unfortunately. Janice's mom died when she was 52 years old. She had a brain aneurysm. And by the time she died, she actually already had 7 grandchildren, which is crazy.
Wow.
But she was by all accounts, she was witty and smart and fierce.
Really?
She was fierce enough that she divorced my grandfather at a time when many women did not.
Oh, you didn't get divorced back then?
Just did not.
Nope.
And my grandfather was a colonel in the Air Force. And a divorce for him would have been extremely shaming. It would have been extremely humiliating, because there is a thing in the culture of the armed forces where if you're an officer's wife, you fill a certain role.
Yes.
You toe the line. You do what you're told. you support your husband. And apparently my grandmother did not. She was no longer willing to put up with that. And to be fair, my grandfather was a World War II veteran. He was a POW. He was in a concentration camp.
Oh, wow. He
And
must have been a mess.
so this was a time where people didn't talk about their trauma.
Mhm.
There was not reliable mental health treatment at this time. And so first of all, the fact that they ended up getting a divorce at all was shocking.
Yes.
And then secondly, they both remarried.
Mhm.
And, then to put a pin on that, Janice was a mother of 4 young children when her mother died. And so she no longer had that guide as, somebody she could depend
Right.
on and rely upon. So you really have to look at the generational trauma of that. I would not be surprised at all. And I don't know for sure because my grandma Noni died when I was 6 months old.
Mhm.
So I never knew her.
Oh, that's too bad.
All I know is the family stories. And again, can we trust them? No, they've been
Exactly.
embellished. They've been changed, all of that.
Right. A lot.
But there's enough consistency in some of the stories that I can say it would not surprise me at all if Noni was very strict about appearance, if she was very insistent that, okay, well, I'll just tell you one thing. So there were 4 children in that family. Janice is the oldest daughter, and then my dad. And then they had another sister, and then Rex is the youngest son.
Mhm.
That third child, the sister, there's a story that at one point Noni was making school lunches for these kids and she was packing up their lunch and she made a ham sandwich for this sister and left a note in the lunchbox that said, "If eating this makes you feel like a cannibal, don't do it."
Oh, God.
So that could have been snarky or it could have been shaming. We don't know because we
Oh
don't
my
have any
God.
other context. But, hearing that story in the context of Janice's issues kind of
Yeah.
makes sense, unfortunately.
Stacy, can you take over chat for just a moment? There's a cat outside that needs to come in, and we know on this channel the animals rule. So I will be right back. Give me 30 seconds or so. I'll be right back.
Wow, what? I can't even wrap my head around that. I've heard a lot of strange things, but not something like that.
Well, I will just tell you, it kind of makes sense in my family dynamic where my dad kind of never really gave me a genuine compliment. It was always sort of backhanded. There was always sort of a snarky undertone to it. And, when Lori was talking in one of her interviews about she and Summer communicating an entire conversation with just movie quotes.
Yeah.
That's 100% my family because my dad at one point, I was heavily involved in music as a kid. I started playing the piano when I was 5. I was in orchestra. I played the cello very badly, but I was in choir. And after one of my concerts, my dad said to me, after one of my choir concerts where, the entire choir is standing on the risers on the stage. So there's, multiple levels of kids.
I was in choir too. Yeah.
Yeah. So my dad said to me after one of those concerts, "You were the best one in your row," which is actually a quote from Ghostbusters.
Really? Oh my gosh.
But it's also kind of a backhanded compliment, right? It's like,
Right.
I couldn't pick you out of all of the people who were standing next to you. So I'm not going to genuinely say that I liked your singing because I couldn't really hear it. But it's like this complicated thing of like, I can't be vulnerable enough to tell you how I really feel about
Right.
your performance. And so I'm going to deflect all of that by just saying something funny and snarky. And so that's why I sometimes hesitate to be snarky because I don't want to fall into that trap of not saying how I really feel and just
Right.
dismissing it away with sarcasm, which was my first language as a child.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Anna Franco says, is Megan Conner the oldest of her siblings?
No, I'm the second. I'm the second oldest.
Second.
So I'm the same as my dad. I'm the second of 4 kids.
Got it. Okay. We could go on and on about the Cox family, and again, just going back to your, to your great grandmother and Janice's mom, and again, it is a generational abuse that has such a big ripple effect. When you look at all the people that their behaviors have affected, and it's so important to keep talking about it. So this hearing on September 19th, is it going to be live streamed? I would think, because they'll be interested in it.
Honestly, I don't know, because since the trial is officially all over, I don't know if Court TV has petitioned to have a camera in the courtroom for this hearing or not. It is going to be via Zoom, and actually, if you go to the document where they are announcing the hearing, it gives the Zoom link there.
Oh,
but
so
I
we
don't
could watch
know.
it on Zoom.
Maybe. I don't know if they're going to let just anybody in, though. That's the thing.
Right.
But this is the restitution hearing. So if you remember, at the end of the sentencing, at the end of July, God, was it my time warp?
I know, it's so hard to keep track.
I can't even wrap my brain around it. But anyway, at the end of the sentencing, Judge Boreski mentioned that Kay Vallow had entered a financial number for restitution, but that Brandon Boudreaux had not yet come to a number, and that they, needed to have a hearing regarding that. And the judge asked Lori if she was going to waive her appearance or be there or not. And we kind of already talked about that. So she did not waive her appearance. She was not willing to even say if she was going to let her attorneys appear on her behalf for that restitution hearing.
Stupid.
But basically, restitution is where, Kay Woodcock entered all of the expenses that she has gone through to be here for this trial, and all of the expenses of, everything that she's had to do as a result of this crime. Now, I don't think she put a number that was big enough, because she didn't really think about like therapy and all that other stuff. She was thinking about travel and actual expenses. And so I think Brandon was putting together a more comprehensive number, and Kay was like, wait a second, can I add,
Yeah.
So I think they need to have a hearing to see whether or not Lori, as her own attorney, is going to accept the number that Kay and Brandon put forward as the restitution that's owed. Now, this is, again, as Judge Boreski said, it's largely symbolic, because Lori was declared indigent. She doesn't have any money.
Right.
But as we know, she is going to be publishing her book of scripture that Jesus told her was going to be really interesting scripture. So if there is anybody, willing to take the heat for publishing whatever it is that she's writing, if she earns any money from that, it will go directly to the victims for this restitution fund. And then if anybody puts money on her books for the commissary in prison, 30% of that will go towards the victims.
Oh, that's good. That's good. We have a couple of questions in chat. No More BS says, why didn't Alex go to Hawaii with everyone? I missed that part. Was he there to care for Stacy? I think that's what the deal was, wasn't it? You stay home, watch your sister, take care of her, Yeah,
probably. I don't know. I mean, that's obviously a speculation. We don't know exactly the conversation that took place between all of them, but Alex was working at the time, so it could have just been like, well, Alex needs to work and he can't come with us anyway, so he might as well take care of Stacy while he's here. And God knows why they didn't take Stacy. It probably would have done her a lot of good to go to Hawaii and be in the sun and get some vitamin D and be out in the negatively charged ions of the waterfalls. That could have been really healing for her, but I don't think that was the objective all along. I think the objective was for the family to be out of town when this happened. And that is, by the way, a huge MO, where, Lori was in Hawaii when Tammy was killed. Summer was in New York when Charles was killed. It's just a thing that apparently they think if you weren't actually there, then you weren't.
Then you're innocent. Exactly. Lou wants to know, are Megan's parents still alive? I've never heard her say so.
They are, yes.
And how are they doing? Are they doing better? I mean, I don't mean to get too personal, but
No, it's
I'll get
okay.
personal.
I don't mind, I don't mind talking about it. So my parents and I were no contact for a number of years at my behest because I needed
Okay.
time and space to heal. And during that time, they moved away from San Antonio. They moved to St. George, where Rex was living and Janice and Barry were living. So now all four of the siblings are in St. George.
Right.
My parents and I have begun to repair our relationship. And while we don't agree on a lot, one thing that we can agree on is how much we abhor the behavior of the Cox family.
Oh, that's good.
The Coxes were always terribly mean to my mother.
Really?
They were always very disparaging of her. Janice was always very fake to my mother in person. She would be, "Oh, it's so good to see you." And then behind her back would talk crap about her all the time. And
what
my
would she
mom
say?
knew this. Well, Janice would disparage my mom's look and her dress and, just anything to make Janice feel better about herself. My mom, as a young person, was a gorgeous brunette. She was so lovely as a younger person. And I think Janice probably felt threatened by that,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But, there also was a lot of controlling behavior, a lot of complicated dynamics in my parents' relationship and everything like that. So I will just say that, my parents and I don't talk a great deal, but we've been able over the last couple of years to find some common ground. My dad has had some heart problems over the last years. And, I've been concerned about the health of both of my parents. And I dread what is going to happen when one of them passes away. I don't really know how I'm going to handle all of that. It's been really difficult. I will say this, though. My parents did make sure that I always could take piano lessons, which was hugely important in my personal development. And I loved that. I was grateful for that. And also, I think my parents did the best they could with what they had.
What they had. Yes,
and what
exactly.
they had was very little emotional intelligence. And that's sad, but it's what they were handed.
Exactly.
And, I don't blame them for where they came from and how unequipped they were. If there is, and I've said this many times, if there is one thing that I begrudge them, it's that in realizing that how they were raised was not working with their own children, I wish that they would have tried to seek out another way.
Yes.
And tried to find out how they could have done something different. But I don't blame them for the fact that they didn't, because they didn't have the kinds of tools and resources that we have now today. So I love my parents. I care about them, but there's very little that we can talk openly about. I have to be careful about what we talk about.
Exactly. And it's easy to sit back and look and say, my God, you know how you were raised. You hated it, but yet why didn't you change it with your kids? Like you said, they didn't have that type of information available. Now it's easy to see. And so that's good. And I think it's always healthier to forgive when you can. Because
Yeah,
it
of
just
course.
eats you up if you don't.
Right.
That's my professional opinion. But yeah,
Well, and like I say, I don't harbor any ill will towards my parents, but the way that they communicate in a lot of ways is still not healthy. And so that's why I have some boundaries around what we talk about and how often we talk and how much time we spend together.
Exactly. No, I agree. And I do want to talk about this, be back, because this is very important. It says, where is the rest of Tylee? And where is the crime scene? I don't want to know, but what happened? I agree. And we're going to talk about that when we get back. But first, guys, I just want to tell you about our amazing friends at DNA Solves. We've talked about them before, and there's just not a better group of people here at DNA Solves. I'm sorry, my full screen just froze, everybody. Hang on. Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, because you guys are going to have to log out to come back because my whole screen just completely froze. Oh, crap. Hold on. let's
I
see
can
if
hear
this
you,
will-
and you're not. Well, you're not frozen for me. I can see you as well.
Okay, just a second here. Let's see if this will work. Hold on.
Yeah,
Maybe
you're
it will.
moving and stuff for us. We can see you
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I'm completely frozen. Completely. Okay, now is the DNA solve screen. There we go. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, we've talked about DNA solves before. The wonderful people there, the scientists and the researchers, they literally spend night and day trying to find the loved ones of the missing. And sometimes what they have of the missing people is very little. It could take them a long time to find out who these remains belong to, but that's what they do night and day, but they can't do it without you. If you would like to become what we call a subscriber to DNA Solves, the link is in chat. I have pinned it to chat. And what that means is you make a monthly donation to DNA Solves to help these scientists and researchers finally give these families the answers they so richly deserve. Even if you can give $1 a month, please sign up to become a monthly subscriber to DNA Solves. And what that does is that helps keep the ads off of websleuths.com. It helps keep this YouTube channel ad-free. It helps mostly, though, and more importantly, those family members get the answers. Help us out if you can, please. DNAsolves.com. Okay, now let's see. I'm going to see if I can do this. And there we are. Can you guys hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Now, getting back to BBAC's question. I literally have spent nights sometimes sitting up thinking, what the hell happened to Tylee? We know through the little bit of the remains that were found that I believe there was a pickaxe used in her lower region. Now, we don't know what happened. We know they tried to burn her. They tried to cremate her and it didn't work. But what the hell was going on with that child? It was so different for JJ. He was murdered. He was wrapped up. He was in one piece. And I've always wondered, is it because Chad hated her, just hated her and wanted to harm her more, wanted to humiliate her more? I just pray that she was already passed when all of whatever they did to her happened. I don't think we'll ever know, Megan. Do you think?
Well, this is a hard one for me because this is the question that haunts me more than anything else is what happened to Tylee.
Mm-hmm.
And my cat's name is Karen. Yeah, it matters. It matters.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because if it was somebody that you knew and loved, you would want to know. You would want to know. I mean, maybe there are people who wouldn't want to know, but me personally, obviously I'm not the kind of person that can just say, well, we're just never going to know. And that's okay.
Right.
The thing is that, at each one of the trials, the prosecution only presented the evidence that was important to convicting the person who was on trial.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not present evidence that would have distracted the jury from convicting the person who was on trial.
Right.
So at Lori's trial, they didn't want to present evidence of Chad and Alex being involved. At Chad's trial, they didn't want to present evidence of Lori and Alex being involved. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, there was a pivotal moment for me, and this happened to be the day that I was only able to attend Chad's trial for a day and a half, and then they excused early on the second day, which I didn't expect. But the day that I was there was when Nick Balance was on the stand, and he was presenting the cell phone ping data, and he went into great detail about how all of that works, and my nerdy brain just went nuts and soaked it up.
Right.
But what I found incredibly troubling was that he presented the data from the Yellowstone visit. Mm-hmm. And he noted the time that everybody left Yellowstone and then noted the time that everybody arrived back in Rexburg. And what he said was that, quote, nothing significant, no stops of significance were noted between those two times. Mm-hmm. And I know differently. We all know differently. We have cell phone pings of Alex stopping for extended periods of time on the way back from Yellowstone. And we know that they were all traveling together. And given the amount of time that went by on at least 2 of those stops and the locations that they were, I have a lot of questions. They didn't just stop to get food. And I don't mean to be rude to anybody. No more BS. Thank you for being here. I'm not trying to be rude. They did stop to get food, but also there was one stop that was 20 minutes long beside the freeway. And there was another stop that was 13 minutes long that was at a townhome complex, at which Alex did not live. There was another stop next to a canal that belonged to the Sugar City School District. There was another stop in the yard of somebody who had, farming equipment and other things. I want to know who lived there. I want to know
why did they stop? Right.
I want to know who lived in those places where Alex stopped. I want to know what they saw. I want to know what came of the police interviews in those cases. I want to know what happened. And I think that prior to Chad's trial, I wanted to believe the same that some people have said in chat, where I wanted to believe that Tylee and JJ were drugged and that their death was relatively painless to them. But all of the evidence in Chad's trial pointed to the idea that Tylee was very much awake and alive when her jaw was broken and when other things happened to her. So I can't live in that delusion anymore. And I want to know what happened. And I wish that I had a good enough relationship with law enforcement people that I could reach out and just say, like, off the record, I'm not going to make a video about it, but I want to know. I want to know what happened.
And we should know, and especially the people who love Tylee and knew Tylee should know. That's something that shouldn't be kept. And I don't understand why they didn't. Well, you explained it. They didn't want to distract from the trial, so they left out information that would distract. And that would distract.
If they would have detailed Alex's movements and listed all of the times and places that he stopped, I think that would have distracted the jury from thinking that Chad was culpable in all of this. Because to be honest with you, they left Yellowstone and they arrived back in Rexburg. I don't think Tylee was alive when they arrived back in Rexburg. And I don't think Chad had anything to do with it. I don't think he was anywhere near any of that. I think he just provided a place for the remains to be disposed of, quote unquote. He may have had a hand in burning the remains, burying the remains, but I don't think that he had anything to do with Tylee's death.
With their actual murder.
Right.
But he knew about it.
I think he knew about it. I think he knew what was planned to be done. I think he helped direct it and instruct Alex as to what to do. But I don't think that he was physically there when it happened. I don't think he saw with his own eyes or heard with his own ears, to take Lori's position.
And what about the gunshot and the text message? I've always wondered about that. And that's the police brought that up, how unusual it was for Chad to send this chatty text message to Tammy saying, "Hey, I found a raccoon on the fence and I shot it and buried it in the pet yard, the pet cemetery." Everybody always thought that was to cover up whatever gunshot was fired in case a neighbor heard it. But I don't know. Again, it's just one of those things.
I don't think she made it to Chad's alive. I really don't. I don't think that there was a shot that happened on the property, but I think that this was Chad was so bad at coming up with any sort of fiction of any kind.
Yeah, he was so horrible.
I think that what Lauren and Dr. John have pointed out before, the burning the limbs, I think was literal.
Literal. When he said that, I'm burning some limbs, he said that in the text. And it's like, wouldn't you say I'm tree limbs, I'm burning, branches, but he said limbs.
He
And it's
was
like, that was just
stupid.
a dead giveaway.
He was stupid, and he was unintelligent, and he was uncreative, and he couldn't come up with anything smarter than that.
Right.
That's what just infuriates me. Like, I think he said the literal thing because he was too dumb to come up with anything else.
Absolutely.
And we saw that throughout his writing. He didn't have any creativity. And his stupid ass call where he said he was Chad Daybell when he
What
called
the
it,
hell?
like, what? When you're going to make a phone call like that, you come up with a story in advance. You know?
You write it down, you do something, but no, oh God, you're right. He was so stupid. And still, that's what kills me. Go ahead.
And to Crush's point, by the way, hi Crusha, love you. I think there was a shot, but I think it happened way back, before they really got too far away from Yellowstone. And maybe Chad thought, oh, they're going to find, bullet fragments or whatever. And so I might as well say the raccoon was shot. I just don't think he was creative enough to come up with something that was
with anything that was, something that would make sense to anybody. But what he did was he drew attention to himself by sending this text message that before all he'd ever say to Tammy would be, I'll be home. I'm running late, just nothing. All of a sudden he has this story that he has to text her. It's so weird.
Yeah. And if he would have just not said anything to her, I doubt she would have even noticed. And maybe he could have just, like, if she had come home and been like, hey, that's weird, there's some burnt limbs, and Chad could have said to her in person rather than in writing in a text message, he could have just said, oh yeah, there was a raccoon, that I had to shoot and bury, but it's all okay.
Yeah. And I decided to, just burn some of the branches out there so they didn't get dry. And I mean, there's all sorts of, I could come up with a better excuse, and I don't even know that area. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what the tree limbs look like. I could have come up with a much better story. He's such an idiot, and that's what kills me. You look at Charles Vallow, and this is a manly, macho, great guy, and he's a loving man, and he, changed his religion for Lori, became a Mormon, just this great guy who helped her family, gorgeous, good looking, made money, all of that. Chad is the opposite. Chad's like the anti-Charles, pudgy, he's stupid, he doesn't make any money, probably smells, but he told Lori she was a goddess, and that's what it took. Charles would not say, Lori, you're a goddess, and you're part of this 144,000. He wouldn't buy into that bullshit. He was trying to, get her to come out of this cult thinking. But that's why she was attracted to Chad, because Chad made her a goddess. Yeah. And in her mind, she was. Oh, and you know what? I was talking to a friend about this the other day. It's like, I can't get over it, you guys. I keep going over everything in my mind, and I watch the testimony again, trying to see if I've missed something that I can understand this. And I can't. It gets to me. I have nothing to do with this family. I have nothing to do with this case. It literally just eats at me sometimes. So I can't imagine how the members of Tylee's family and JJ's family, Cresha and her mom, Kay, and Tammy's family, I can't imagine how it affects you. So I think we do need to keep talking about it.
Yeah, and I want to address what Cresha has said, because I agree with you, Cresha, that I think Chad was involved in dismantling Tylee's remains. But I think my theory personally is that those stops that Alex made were doing the actual killing and starting the dismemberment process and possibly disposing of evidence. And then what was left was taken to Chad's property, where Chad helped to, try to dispose of the rest of the remains. And it's horrible and disgusting to think about and to talk about, but that's my theory. And I don't have all of the puzzle pieces, but I want them. I want to know.
And I think you're right. That's the only thing that makes sense. What is Occam's razor? When you get rid of all the things that are the impossible, the only thing that remains is the probable.
Yeah.
And the easiest explanation is the one, and that's the easiest, is that she was killed on the way home somehow, and they stopped to get rid of evidence, maybe just like you said, start the dismembering, and it finished up on the property. And and it's been explained to me, and it just bounces off my head because I can't absorb it. Why in the hell did they bury those bodies on Chad's property? For God's sakes, if they would have buried them anywhere else, Chad could have said, I wasn't there, and he left his phone home. That's all it took. He didn't need to be a genius. Chad could have just left his phone home, had Alex pick him up. They could have gone wherever, and he could have had actual deniability in this case. But they had to bury him there. Why?
Well, yeah, Kresha, I do think that that's possible, that Chad could have met them at those locations too. But I agree with Dr. John Matthias, who said that it was a measure of control on Chad's part, that he wanted to be able to see the burial spots from his house, and he wanted to be able to watch over them and know that they were not being disturbed. And he wanted to have control over those remains, that this is on my property. These remains belong to me. That was a measure of it making him feel important.
Powerful. I mean, it's power. Look at me. I have controlled this narrative, and now I have their bodies right within feet of me, and I can look at them and know that they're there and know that I caused that and created it. And he felt that power. He felt that power. Oh, it just makes me sick to my stomach, you guys. It really does. And again, sometimes we've talked about this before. I get complaints. Stacy gets complaints. I'm sure you do too, Megan. Why do you always talk about Lori? She needs to be talked about. This needs to be talked about. I think a lot of us feel this way, is like, what the hell happened? We need to find out. And one of the ways to do that is to talk it out, and have people think outside of the box. Not that we have any evidence, not that we'll ever know, because we can't depend on Chad and Lori to ever tell the truth. But I do think there are other people that know. I think Melanie Gibb knows a lot more, and I wish she would say something. Maybe even Melanie Boudreau. But will they ever talk? Definitely. I doubt it.
Yeah. I think it's definitely, it's beyond speculation at this point, that both of the Melanies know way more than they are ever going to be willing to say in public unless they're compelled to.
Yes.
Melanie Gibb in particular, I believe, was present when JJ was killed. Mm-hmm. And I think that she probably knows exactly what happened to him, but she won't say. And she's been granted, a measure of immunity in Idaho. Right. I do hope that Melanie Pulowski is charged if there's enough evidence to convict her. Mm-hmm. And I hope that she pleads guilty. And I've said this before, if she needs a friend to go down there and plead guilty with her, I will hold her hand. I will sit beside her while she pleads guilty and while she gets sentenced, if that's what she needs. Because I just pray that if she gets charged, she does not put everybody through another trial.
And has anybody in this whole group, have they ever done anything to prevent somebody from getting hurt? No, just the opposite. She's not going to think, I don't want to put my kids through this. I don't want them to see their mother on trial. Brandon's been through so much. That's what she would think if she really was out of the cult thinking. But no, I don't think that. I don't think we have a chance of that happening.
And even with the one person who testified, I think it was Serena Sharp, that said to Lori, well, if anything ever happens to Charles, I'm going to go to the police. Right. But did she? Nope. No. The police had to come to her. So yeah, I get it. Like it's horrific to be involved in something like this. It's embarrassing. It's shameful, to think that you've been duped and all of that. But when it comes to protecting children, you cannot go far. You can't not go too far. That's what I feel like. And that's where I fault all of these, as Larry called them, freaking cult members, or,
yes,
her coven of followers. It was bad to be involved, but it is worse to withhold information.
Do not say anything. You're absolutely right. And yes, Shirley Fowler, they talked about putting wasn't a slab of cement to put a trailer on? They're going to do that over the graves. Was that what it was? I can't remember.
I heard somewhere that they had applied for a permit to put a concrete slab in Chad's backyard to put a trailer on, maybe for Lori to live on, but none of that ever came out in trial.
Right.
And from what Detective Hermosillo says, when they got to Chad's house to serve that warrant, they weren't sure if they were looking in the right place or not. So to me, maybe that's information that came out later. Because, you know, if they had a slab permit that was applied for in a specific spot, they would have been like, yeah, absolutely, that's the spot we need to go to.
Right.
But Detective Hermosillo said that, you know, he was looking at Chad's face for some register of emotion, and Chad did not change his facial expression at all when he read the warrant that said they were going to search the property. And Hermosillo was like, well, crap, maybe we're in the wrong place, you know?
They were just going by some phone pings.
Yeah.
There
and
was
it wasn't until, you know, Chad was sitting in the, you know, the police vehicle, and he kept looking and he kept looking and he kept looking. And Hermosillo was looking at that line of sight and going, okay, let's look there next, you know, and they, you know, they didn't know for sure. So yeah, I heard that as a rumor. I don't know how true that is, but we've never seen any evidence of it. It wasn't presented at trial. So it could just be a rumor.
And what was the rumor again?
That Chad had applied for a permit to put a concrete slab.
Right. Yeah, we've heard that, but we've never seen. Yeah. And I want to bring up what Kresha says. Kresha says, y'all, Megan, thanks for talking about this horrifying story. I know it sucks, but it helps move the story forward and will hopefully bring answers one day. Exactly. Absolutely right, Kresha. And thank you for all you do, Kresha. And I'm so sorry that this happened to your uncle, to your nephew, and to your niece. It was just absolutely terrible. And your family, oh my God, we all love Kay and Larry so much. And one thing that was brought up, but I guess it had been brought up a long time ago, was that Lori had tried to poison Larry. Now, I didn't know about that until just recently. I guess they were in Hawaii, and was it fruit salad he ate? And then on the way home, he knew he'd been poisoned. He knew he had been poisoned on that plane. It was food poisoning. Do I have that right?
Yeah, he was, you know, he got on the plane and he started feeling sick, and he, you know, even had to throw up in his hat. And he said on the plane that he felt like he was not going to make it. And he told Kay he was not going to make it. He was very scared for his life.
And God, that's so weird. What would be the point? I guess maybe just see if she could do it. You know, maybe just, and maybe Larry did something to her that we don't even know about, you know, and he didn't know that he did.
Wronged her somehow. If you listen to what Dr. John Matthias says about people who poison, they're passive aggressive. They can't directly confront the people that they have a problem with. And so the poisoning is like, they don't have the stomach to watch someone suffer, because once they're poisoned, they're going to suffer away from the poisoner. It's a very passive aggressive thing. And it is typical, honestly, of females and people who view themselves as too weak physically to actually, you know, murder somebody.
Exactly. I think she wanted to see if she could get away with it. He probably did something to her, and she was like, I'm powerful. You know, I'm a, what are they called? A translated being. I call them translucent. Translated being, you know, what are the stupid crap that she says? It's just, again, Megan, we could go on for hours and hours and hours, but I'll let you get off with an hour and 15 minutes this time. Next time, it might be all night.
Next time,
Megan,
4 hours.
Exactly. At least. Megan Conner, what is next on your channel? It's at, oh my gosh, let me grab it here.
It's under my name right there, at @3rd_verse.
Yep. There you go.
I have been commenting on Kevin Frankie's lawsuit filing. I'm going to continue to comment on that. I actually want to do some digging into Ruby's sisters, because
let's hear about that.
Well, I played a little snippet of a video of her sister Bonnie responding a year ago when Ruby was sentenced, saying, I am not my sister. I am not my sister's crimes. But man, this lady is a piece of work.
Really? I remember that. And so is she like a mess too, or what's the scoop?
I mean, it kind of seems so, as far as listening to what she has to say. If you have observed Lori in court and with her interviews that she does in public where she speaks with her chin up like this and she
Oh, yes,
shows
like
her
this.
lower teeth a lot, there's a lot of contempt. If you watch that kind of body language and you look at this particular sister of Ruby's, it's all there. There are some pretty narky traits really, really visible in her videos. And she has something like 1.3 million viewers. But what's really interesting is this particular video that she put out. I think it has somewhere around 40,000 views. You would expect somebody with that many subs to have way more views on a video where she's speaking out about her sister. And
That
so
should be
my guess
massive.
is that a lot of her subs are trolls that are just curious. I'll just real quick, I'll share my screen and I'll show you the, this is where I paused that video.
Okay. Oh, do I need to bring it up?
Oh yeah, you have to share,
There you
add it to the stage.
Mhm.
I mean, look, I don't want to judge somebody on one bad screenshot,
Mhm.
but she's very insistent on this video that she has nothing to do with Ruby, that this is not her. But at the same time, she's doing the same thing that Ruby was, exploiting her family for clicks and views on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, her kids are out there for the public to view. So in my opinion, it's just as harmful.
So, what is she doing with her kids, with her own kids?
I mean, she has a very similar channel to Ruby. Like she is
Really?
she's a faithful LDS member, and you know, she does a bunch of travel and RV videos with her entire family showing her kids for you know, for content. And she promotes a whole bunch of products and has all of these, you know, affiliate links on her descriptions on her YouTube channel. She has a separate email address for business inquiries only. You know, she's got a PO box where she, you know, receives her fan mail or whatever. But it's, you know, basically kind of the same type of content that Ruby Frankie was putting out. Now, she might not be openly abusing her children, but if she's using her children for content, you know, who knows if she's actually compensating those kids and if she's actually protecting them, and if she's, you know, knowing that Ruby was basically exploiting her kids to put up like the most embarrassing moments of their lives because she knew it would be lots of clicks and views. You know, Bonnie, as Crushes says, she denies she's doing what Ruby did. I think it's the same, honestly.
Now, aren't there two sisters though? Because I'm looking up here on YouTube.
Yeah, there are several. Yeah, there are several sisters. I need to. I have to look at my. I have a list, and I just haven't looked at it. But I know she has at least 3 sisters who are creating content as family vloggers, and they all have over 1 million subs.
Good Lord! Here, I'll put this link in chat of the video. I'll just put Ruby. Yeah, Ruby's sister. You guys will know, and I'll put it in the description. But so you're going to do a deep dive on this then?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna show you know, some of these videos and just unpack my impressions about their body language, their, you know, what they actually say and what they don't say. So I'm going to do some of that, you know, as this is the second lawsuit that Kevin has filed against Jody Hildebrandt and her connections business. But I think a little bit of it is deflection, like taking the attention away from his behavior and
from
saying,
what he did.
You know, look, Ruby's so horrible. The other thing is that there is another case at the intersection of narcissism, true crime, and high demand religion. Donna Adelson is going on trial on Tuesday.
Yes.
And she is a devouring mother, in my opinion. She is a narcissistic matriarch, in my opinion. And, you know, the only reason I mention high demand religion is because the victim in this case, Stan Markell, was wanting to return to his more Orthodox Jewish roots and raise his children with more orthodoxy. And it was that declaration or that ideology, I think, that eventually like caused the whole turn of events that ended in his death, because Wendy would not support, his wife Wendy would not support his idea of their two boys being raised in a more Orthodox Jewish setting.
Right.
And it was the mom of Wendy, Donna Adelson, who wanted those boys closer to her in Miami rather than in Tallahassee, where Wendy felt like she was being stifled by this tiny podunk community. She wanted to be back in Miami. She wanted the kids to be there. And her husband, former husband, Dan Markel, was standing in the way of that. So it was an alleged murder for hire plot. We can say alleged, but there are 3 people who have already been convicted. Actually, 4 people who have already been convicted.
Right.
Charlie Adelson, who's Wendy's brother, Donna's son, who allegedly orchestrated the entire thing, has been convicted. The 2 people who were in the car that were in Dan Markel's driveway when he was shot, those 2 people have been convicted. And also the girlfriend who was the go-between, who used to work for Dan Markel and also was the estranged girlfriend of the hitman. And she's been convicted. So, there so far have been 4 convictions. Donna is up on trial next. She's the matriarch. Wendy received, I forget exactly the term. She received some kind of immunity, which basically meant she testified in her brother Charlie's trial. She's going to probably testify in her mother's trial, although her attorney is trying to get that quashed. But she's received immunity for her testimony, but if they find additional evidence that she may have been complicit, then she could be charged as well.
Wow. And then that's coming up on Tuesday. And this has been going since what, 2014 when he was shot? I mean, this has been going on over 10 years. I think he was shot in 2014 and the first trial was 2016, I think. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, and it's all over custody. It's the custody issue. And again, these people are so arrogant that they think that they could just get away with it. That somehow they'll fool law enforcement, they'll fool everybody, and nobody will think they had anything to do with it. Wasn't he gunned down in his driveway, basically?
Yeah, and you're right. It was 2014, ironically, July 18th of 2014.
Yes.
And basically, he was on the phone with somebody from his son's school, and he pulled into his garage, and somebody, pulled up in a Prius in the driveway behind him, and he told the person on the phone, "Hold on, there's somebody here that I don't recognize." And then the person on the other line heard some strange noises, and it sounded like something bad had happened. And the neighbor across the street noticed that somebody had sped away from his driveway, and they thought that Dan was getting ready to back out of his driveway and leave, but he didn't leave. So the neighbor went back over there and saw that he had been shot. He went on the 911 call. He didn't know if it was self-inflicted or not, but the police found that there was nothing missing from his wallet. When there was a snafu where they thought that they were going to a traffic stop or traffic accident rather than a shooting. So they took a long time getting there. By the time they loaded him into the ambulance, he was still kind of gasping for breath, and he didn't die until the next day. But it became apparent very quickly that Charlie had been involved in hiring these 2 men to do a hit on him.
Yeah. And again, the dominoes have kept falling. And this, I think, is the last trial in this case. And it does start on Tuesday. And we do have a discussion going on about that on websleuths.com. I want to put that up right now. If you just go to our front page, you'll click on the On Trial button, and boom, you'll be right there. And we also have it featured a little bit farther down, but here is here's the discussion thread, and it starts in actually in 2019 is when our discussion started, but he was actually shot in 2014. Let me put this in chat right now, and I'll put it in the description as well underneath this video. Megan Conner, thank you so much. It has been, again, a delight, a pleasure, and we learned so much. Even when we discuss some of the same stories, there's always a different perspective, always more thoughts that go into it. And again, we got to keep talking about it because we have to figure out what happened. We need to know what happened. And I fully believe that maybe we'll find out what happened. I don't know. But it is important enough to keep talking about it. Megan Conner, everybody needs to go to Megan's channel. Don't forget to go to Megan's channel at @3_verse and be sure and subscribe. Thank you, Megan. Thank you so much, my dear.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for all you guys do for this community, and thanks to your mad chatters. Thanks to all my people who are here and my mods. Thanks to Kresha. I'm just grateful for this community, grateful to have a place to talk about this because, I still have questions, obviously, and hopefully, going forward, applying the template from Lori's behavior to other cases are going to help more people find the answers that they need and help more people, more family members who are affected to be able to find some peace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Megan. We'll talk soon, okay?
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you to Kresha, gave us a lot of information in chat. Thank you so much, Kresha, and everybody in chat. I want to thank our moderators. That would be Four Sons Mom, and also Yuta and Moonlight View, Lynn Gen 2, and Alicia Gallegos. Ladies, thank you so much. Stacy, thank you, my darling. Thank you for everything. Yes, what are you going to say to me? I'm going to say thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And everybody, don't forget to check out websleuths.com. And if you are a guardian, that means you have joined the club at websleuths.com, where you pay $3 a month to get extra fun stuff. If you're a guardian, don't forget we have a Zoom call, 8-hour Zoom call on Saturday with all of the guardians. Go to websleuths.com and just click on the free for all thread. If you're a guardian, you'll see it, and it's right there. And if you want to become a guardian, go to websleuths.com. You'll see the big thing that says become a guardian. Click on that. You can become a guardian and support Websleuths. I think I've said everything tonight, I hope. If I've forgotten, I'll come back. I'll come back later if I forget anything, right? Of course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, guys. We'll see you tomorrow night, 10:30 Eastern on Websleuths YouTube Live. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.